Well, let's talk about someone else that's not getting a trophy, unfortunately, and that is men's golf. Season comes to an end this afternoon out in Arizona.
Yeah, tough day for Ryan Hibble's squad at a Greyhawk Golf Club this afternoon as the Sooners season comes to an end at the hands of the Arizona State Sun Devils in match play quarterfinals. Guys, this is kind of a tough pill to swallow. We're talking about a team that's been a majority of the season ranked, or I guess not even a majority, basically all season long ranked number one in the country. 3 of the 4 guys were consistently ranked in the top 20 all season long. They won the Big 12, they won the regional in dominant fashion, and played some really good golf for 3 of the 4 stroke play days, but they really struggled as a team yesterday, which dropped them from the 1 seed all the way down to the number 2 seed, which set them up with the matchup today against the host team, Arizona State. And guys, competitive golf, it's kind of funny. It's an unpredictable game, especially when it's match play format. And the Sun Devils got the best of OU today. If Oklahoma plays them 10 times, they probably win 8 out of 10. But this is golf. Anything can happen on any given day. But unfortunately, Arizona State caught the Sooners on an off day, and we paid the price for it. So, and then focusing a little bit individually, it was a tough 24 hours individually for senior Chris Gotterup, who came up short yesterday for the individual title. He missed 2 putts, I believe, inside of 5 feet on the back 9 yesterday's, and that one stings, guys, especially the one on 17, missing the 4-footer where he had a chance to take the lead outright with 1 hole to play, setting himself up for a chance to win a national championship. And then today he suffered a tough 7-5 loss, and putter just kind of let him down from start to finish all day long. Was never really able to get back on track after falling down falling down 2 with 2 holes to start out his round. But I do want to finish on kind of a high note here, guys, with Chris, because it was announced today that he won the 2022 Fred Haskins Award, awarded annually to the nation's top or most outstanding golfers. So congratulations, Chris, on one hell of a season, one hell of a college career, and we can't wait to see what you do at the next level. So not the finish that we wanted from the OU men's golf team. I know Ryan Hibble, he's talked about how proud he is of his team, and we're all proud of him. But this one does kind of sting a little bit when expectations were a national championship.
Tyler, what should be the disappointment level for this team? I mean, you're number one the majority of the year, putting up win after win after win, solid performance, just to kind of fall short before you even really get that far into match play.
Yeah, I think that you do have to kind of be a little bit disappointed. Like I said, this was a team that started the year out preseason number 1. They played extremely well all season long, able to maintain that number 1 ranking. You win the Big 12 championship. I kind of joked about it today talking to one of my buddies. You look at who the top 8 teams were that were left in college golf going into match play. 4 of the 8 were from the Big 12 conference. So to play that well all season long, win your conference championship, dominate your regional on your home course, setting yourself up where you've got a ton of momentum going into Greyhawk this week at the NCAA championships. They came out of the gate, played extremely well. Like I said, they were in first place after the 3rd round. Struggled a little bit yesterday. The winds picked up out there in Scottsdale, so didn't have their best effort. Were able to lock up the 2 seed going into today. I actually said before the round started today, I thought that them getting the 2 seed was kind of a blessing in disguise, not having to take on Texas Tech in the first round. And I guess we should have cheered to take on the Red Raiders today. But no, OU falls to Arizona State today. Season comes to a close in the NCAA quarterfinals. But if there's one thing that we know, Ryan Hibble, he'll have this team back next year. They lost 3 All-Americans from a year ago, and here they were again, number 1 all season long, right till the very end. So tough loss.
How many seniors are on this team?
I believe there's 2. I know without having the roster in front of me, I know Chris is gone.
Yeah.
But Chris was a guy that the transfer portal we were able to land from this past season. So transfer portal, we'll see if Ryan Hibble. I know that we've got some really good talent, especially from some of the in-state kids. There's a couple Oklahoma boys that'll be making their way to Norman to be on Ryan Hibble's team going into 2023. But yeah, I don't expect anything else or anything less than Oklahoma being right back here, compete for a national championship again next season.
It was so tough to watch the finish of that because it was all on the shoulders of a redshirt freshman, a guy that ideally would not be in that situation. And then Cameron Sisk from Arizona State just makes that incredible putt that does a full 360 around the cup from the low end. So it was it was weird to watch that drop in. And I don't know if did we ever find out if that was Arizona State's home course or if that was just nearby. They happened to be the host.
I think it was just nearby. They were considered the host school. They're kind of the hometown. Well, I guess Arizona State. They're in Tempe. Is that right?
Hmm.
Um, so I don't necessarily think it was the home course, but definitely those guys have played that golf course quite a bit, over
Yeah,
their
they had
time
to have
at
known it
Arizona
pretty
State.
well.
So,
Yeah.
but Adam, I think you bring up a good point. Stephen Campbell Jr., that was definitely a bright spot that I think you can take away from today going into next season. I mean, you're talking about a guy that was going head to head with Arizona State's best player. He was down one with 4 holes to go. You don't expect a redshirt freshman going against a senior national championship quarterfinals. He had every reason to, kind of shy away from that, but was able to tie it up at 17. Actually, fell back to being one down on with 1 hole to go, I believe is what it was, and then finding a way to win the hole on 18 and get it into extra holes. So tough pill to swallow, but you got to feel encouraged about the direction of this program, where it continues to go, climb to new heights, and we've got a lot of good young talent that'll be making its way back to Norman next season.
Is it time to talk baseball?
I'm
Just
actually,
just have the
I'm actually
floor, Adam.
excited to talk baseball for the first time in a long time. So, yeah,
You
Adam, what's going on?
Yeah, you and a lot of other Sooners. I asked this question through our Twitter account. Give us a follow on there at the Mainline Pod earlier this afternoon. I wanted to get a gauge for Sooner Nation and what sports they were the most excited about. So I asked, which ones are from softball, baseball, and football, just simply because football is something that there's a lot of one sport fans out there. Unfortunately, there's room for you on the bandwagon in baseball if you're looking for something else to kill your time with. 26% of people did say that baseball was what they were most excited about. 23% said football, despite absolutely nothing going on at the Barry Switzer Center right now. And then 51% chose softball, which is expected. They have the bigger following as of right now. They're playing for a national championship starting later this weekend. We'll talk about them in a moment. But I think that there is a ton of momentum for baseball right now. They did something that I didn't expect them to have the ability to do, which was win 4 straight in the Big 12 tournament. Now they were able to avoid Oklahoma State, which was great, but they mowed down Texas. They mowed down Texas Tech. And they just did everything that, we could have expected from them, like way more than what we could have expected from them. And the pitching was phenomenal. You got career or season high strikeout numbers from each of your weekend starters. 12, 10, and 9, I believe, with Cade Horton doing that on Sunday against Texas. Thought that was probably the most impressive was your freshman and Cade Horton going out and doing that against a really solid lineup in the Longhorns. So unfortunately, that game took place as the host sites were announced for the tournament play. And so I guess you could say OU got hosed. They probably deserve to be a host site for the NCAA tournament first round there. But that those sites, kind of an archaic thing, kind of like softball, the way people always complain about different things in softball that NCAA does. And this really sounds like the type of thing that they do, where they go, we got to announce it, on Sunday instead of Monday in order to give more time for people to get ready. That seems like something that they implemented in 1970, has never been updated since. But as it stands, OU's headed to Gainesville as the 2 seed for Florida. And of course, check out our YouTube channel. I'm wearing my Miami Vice Oklahoma baseball shirt. Felt appropriate. Got my Trevin Michael as my background here with his horns down. So many good things just lined up for OU baseball. I don't know that there's many teams that are hotter right now, and you got to love their prospects going into postseason play.
Yeah, I mean, this has been one of the hottest teams in baseball for what feels like a better part of the last 6 to 8 weeks. And, we've talked about it, going all the way back before the Big 12 tournament, Adam. There was a chance Oklahoma could host a regional. And quite frankly, I think it's bullshit that they weren't one of the top 16 teams who were awarded a regional. I think it's embarrassing, like you said, that the NCAA selects the hosting sites before conference tournaments have actually finished. And like you said, we're actually getting live updates, announcements while the game is actually being played. So Texas is actually being announced. Austin is getting a regional side while OU is beating him for the Big 12 championship. So, guys, this is what really kind of pisses me off. And, Adam, you can speak on this as well as anybody. TCU won the Big 12 regular season title. OU was the runner-up. Texas Tech finished third. Oklahoma State and Texas finished 4 and 5 in the conference. Oklahoma then goes on to win the Big 12 conference tournament. And yet the 2 teams that finished 4th and 5th in the conference are the ones hosting regional sites. So am I going too far as saying that maybe RPI had a little bit less to do with this, and maybe it was the facilities in Norman, Oklahoma that might have cost
Uh,
Oklahoma a chance to be a regional host?
I don't know that I'd put as much into that because Oklahoma State and Texas both had higher RPIs than OU, I believe. So it's a combination of that. I think the baseball committee, just like it is with the college football playoff or any other committee that picks postseason teams, their consistency from year to year is totally different. This year strength of schedule was something that they looked at a lot with a lot of teams. Some teams got snubbed, left out of the tournament because they didn't have great strength of schedule, even though they had a good RPI. So
Mhm.
it's just who knows why they pick some teams and why they don't pick others. Yeah, OSU has a great stadium and good for them. Maybe Arkansas will beat them in O'Brate, but
Well,
um,
I think it's kind of hypocritical too, Adam. Watching the NCAA selection show on Sunday, one of their biggest selling points when talking about why Florida was one of the top 16 national seeds, and their biggest deal was, well, Florida, their performance in the conference championship, they played their way into a top 16 seed, which it's kind of a what have you done for me lately type scenario, where how can you apply that logic to Florida? But when you look at a team like Oklahoma, who's won their last 5 Big 12 conference series, goes 4-0 in the Big 12 tournament, beats Texas, the preseason number one in college baseball, to win the tournament. I don't know. It just kind of feels like it feels a little bit hypocritical when you look and see how Florida was treated and how they were rewarded for their performance in their conference tournament, but Oklahoma wasn't.
Part of that's the time of the game, right, Adam? I mean,
yeah,
Yeah, great
yeah. I
point.
mean, to me, my first thought was, okay, the Big 12 signed up for this time slot in order to get it onto to TV, and it was only on ESPNU, which kind of sucked because I was on a plane during that time. I saw like the first inning, saw OU go down 1-0, landed back in OKC, and we had scored 8 runs out of nowhere. So all the fireworks on Sunday happened while I was on a plane. Couldn't even watch it because it wasn't even on a ESPN or ESPN2. But yeah, it felt like they lined it up just for a TV window there. And then the Pac-12, there was a similar situation where they didn't even start warm-ups until after all the host sites had been announced. Now, didn't end up mattering for that matchup. Both Stanford and Oregon State are hosting there, so didn't end up screwing either of them. But at the end of the day, I'm kind of okay with it. And maybe it'll work out better in OU's favor because I think the regional in Gainesville is very winnable for OU. And then if you do win that, you avoid Tennessee in the super regionals. Now, I think some people were probably more scared of that than they should have been, but I like OU's prospects, 3-game series against anybody. But you do avoid Tennessee in a super regional. Most likely you would play Virginia Tech if you made it that far, although they do have to go through Gonzaga, who a lot of people are really high on. And if
Hmm.
in that situation, it kind of gets interesting where if Virginia Tech does not win their regional and OU does win the Gainesville regional, then it becomes a bidding process to see who wants to host that more. You'd like to think that OU, as the bigger athletic department, the bigger school, has more resources and wants to handle that. But I don't know. Gonzaga probably doesn't have too much success in baseball and doesn't have too many opportunities to do that. So we'll see if it gets to that, or could be someone else that comes out of that regional as
Hmm.
well. But either way, you like where things stand for OU. They did get ranked today, moved up a ton of spots in D1 baseball's rankings into the top 10. They're number 9 currently, and Kendall Rogers does have them as his sleeper pick to win the national title at this point. So
Ooh.
the rise continues for OU baseball. It's almost like I don't want to get too excited about it because it just keeps getting better and better. And I know there's probably heartbreak at the end of this, but you have to be so excited about what this team could accomplish at this point
Hmm.
because our expectations were, pretty moderate coming into the year.
Adam, can just for our listeners, can you share where Florida was ranked in the Division One baseball standings?
They are number 18, and
18.
wow.
Okay,
they're
there you go.
let's talk a little bit about the Gainesville regional. So let's start with Florida. They're the host site, and the reason Florida is here is because of their strength of schedule. The SEC is a very good conference, and then
Yeah.
Florida, of course, plays out of conference. They schedule pretty well there between Florida State and Miami,
Hmm.
who they actually did take, I think, 2 midweek games against Florida State, who's a tournament team. They won the series against Miami, who's a host site, top 16 seed, and they played that back in March. So it's been a little while, but Florida has some really good wins. Now in the SEC, they only finished at 500. So
Yeah.
not necessarily impressive there. Their wins, I believe they beat Arkansas, which is that's a good series win. They beat Mississippi State, who is not a tournament team like they usually are. They lost LSU. So they just don't have too many impressive wins in the conference. So they're really just there based on strength of schedule, RPI, and you're going to get good RPI playing in the SEC. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of why Florida was ended up being the host here.
Yeah, I mean, Florida, number 13 overall national seed. You mentioned 500 in the conference. They had a really good run in the SEC tournament, losing to Tennessee in the title game. But, hey, everyone loses to Tennessee. They're the heavy betting favorite to win the national championship, and for good reason. So, but Adam, I think when you look at the Florida Gators, not the greatest lineup in the world by any means as a team. They're only hitting 273. Which by comparison, OU's hitting right around 297. But they have guys who can hit for power, play small ball, and steal bases. So you're going to have to be very, very sharp in all facets of the game should Oklahoma meet up against them this weekend. And one other name to kind of keep an eye out for OU fans, and I guess any of the other fans of the teams that are going to be watching the Gainesville Regional is sophomore Wyatt Langford. Leads the Gators in all statistical batting categories, 363 batting average, 23 home runs, 60 RBIs, and 85 hits. So while they did, play 500 baseball in the SEC, this is still a very, very good squad from top to bottom. And I like where OU stands going into this matchup down in Florida this weekend. It's just going to be a matter of this three-headed monster pitching staff of Jake Bennett, David Sandlin, and God, I'm blanking, Cade Horton.
Yep.
Seeing if they can
Now,
be dominant like they have been.
yeah. Now, most likely, you're going to play Florida on Saturday if you win,
Mm-hmm.
and Florida wins as well. That'll put you in the winners bracket there. Now, Florida's typical Saturday pitcher is Brandon Neely. He is a right-hander, and that's kind of important right now because when we start seeing left-handers in the opposing on the opposing mound, that's when Skip starts messing with that lineup and taking out guys that are hot right now at the plate because of analytics. And you don't want to see that. So I think that could be encouraging. Most of Florida's aces are right-handers, so that's encouraging. This is a team that they're probably not going to seek out too many strikeouts necessarily. They're lower than OU in average strikeouts per game. They are elite defensively. They don't commit too many errors. They're not going to just give you free bases necessarily. Although OU is going to be incredibly aggressive on the base paths like they've been all year. So I think you like this matchup against Florida, even though it is in their home stadium. And but it's certainly a beatable team, and it's not to say that Florida might even lose in their Friday opener. A lot of people are high on Central Michigan. Central Michigan actually plays a lot like OU, very aggressive on the base paths, really good hitting average. They've got a great Friday ace, so that's a team that might actually be able to take some arms out of the bullpen from Florida in day one, and hopefully put them a little bit weaker positioning if OU is able to play Florida on day two. Or even if Central Michigan wins, I think you like that as well, because even though Central Michigan has a great record, most of that's against the MAC. It's not particularly great. They're, I think, 0-4 against quad one teams on the year. And then once their ace is used up on Friday, what are they going to have left to compete against OU potentially? So they don't necessarily scare me. I think Florida's the one to look at. And then, of course, Liberty as well. We got to talk about Liberty, right?
Well, Adam, I did want to ask you before touching on Liberty here. Hypothetically, if you were sitting in Skip Johnson's chair right now, knowing that the Florida Gators are probably, most likely the team that you're going to be matching up with on Saturday, do you save Jake Bennett, not start your typical Friday guy, or do you just take the typical coach approach where you've got to get there first, so you throw your best guy right out there in game one just to try to get to that Saturday matchup against the Gators?
No, I think you roll with Bennett and just put your best out there and keep the days the same. I don't think you want to mess up the rest pattern all that much. You were able to get this past Friday off. Bennett did start on Thursday, but I think you keep it the same. And honestly, I think Liberty is probably the team here that makes me possibly the most nervous because they have the ability to throw a left-hander at us. It's kind of unclear who they might start here. They've kind of messed with their rotation a little bit because their normal Friday ace, Garrett Horn, has been out with an injury. Doesn't look like he's going to be able to play. So you're either going to get one of two guys. Dylan Cummings, who is a right-hander. He actually went viral earlier this year when they did their uniform release. video that went big on Twitter to Celine Dion's song there. So some people might recall that one. And then Joe Adamants, who is a lefty, he is giving up an average of 283. That's higher than any of the OU weekend starters, just to give you some comparison there. But those lefties are the ones that kind of give OU trouble because Skip likes to put in different guys in the lineup, and then those averages aren't as good there. So we'll see what they can do. Now, Liberty's a team that will try to strike you out a lot more, and they're kind of similar to Florida, I guess, in regards to how they got to this point. They did play a pretty tough schedule. They've got some good wins. They've beaten some tournament teams. Most notably, they opened the season with a 3-game series against Florida and won that one. So
Wow.
a solid team that spent a majority of the early months of the year in the top 15, actually top 20 in the nation. So it's a team that is very dangerous. And it makes me nervous. I mean, as a Liberty grad, but an OU fan, born and raised,
There it is.
it's going to be a weird one to watch for me. But no doubt what side of the line I'm sticking in on this one.
We didn't get confirmation from that on Twitter. That was a pretty vague response on that. It could have gone either way.
I mean, if you don't know me, you should know that. I feel like.
Okay, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. What else you got on baseball, man? Before we transition over to
Last
Rita
little
Hines?
tidbit here: OU's odds to win it all at this point, to go to Omaha, take home the national championship. What could be the first since 1994? Again, Kendall Rogers sleeper pick. Kendall Rogers from D1 Baseball, probably the most plugged in media guy in college baseball as it is. But Vegas pegs OU at 80-1. That's better than some of the national seeds right now. Better than number 8 ECU, better than number 16 Georgia Southern, equal to number 15 Maryland. So I would say that's pretty good odds for a number 2 seed. We'll see how long this hot streak continues. Is it going to come to an end, or is this team just building? Are they still building on their potential at this point? You got to love what OU's got right now. They've got 6 guys in the lineup hitting over 300. You've got most outstanding player from the Big 12 tournament, Peyton Graham, the old reliable Blake Robertson, the guy that finds a way on base, whether it's a hit or a walk. Tanner Treadaway, Wallace Clark, the freshman, John Spikerman, the speedster that's basically guaranteed a stolen base at this point. Brett Squires is healthy again. He's back in the lineup, hitting in that 6-7 range usually and getting some RBIs. And then not even on that list is Jimmy Crooks hitting 296. So you've got some real power, long ball, strategic play, small ball. OU's just doing it all offensively. So it's a team that's really going to test these elite defenses from Liberty and Florida this weekend.
Guys, let's transition to the other side of the diamond. Softball continues to roll. A UCF team that I actually thought could give the Sooners some trouble, especially with Jordy Ball out. Well, that was far from the case. Sooners winning 8-0 in 5 in Game 1 and then 7-1 in Game 2. Just a great pitching performance here by Hope Trotwine and Nicole May. Trotwine goes 5 innings, 3 walks, no hits on 77 pitches. And Nicole May following up with 7 innings pitched, 3 hits, 2 walks, and 4 strikeouts on 88 pitches. So honestly, guys, that is probably the best case scenario you could have asked for this pitching staff. Keep those pitch counts low, get these games over quickly, really never in doubt from the Sooners. And similar to what we mentioned at the end of the regular season, Jocelyn Allo, home run on her final at bat at Marita Hines Field. It could not have been any more poetic the way she went out than seeing a long ball for the end of her bat to end her career in Norman. Let's look forward, guys, because I think this Women's College World Series is going to be very interesting. The Sooners open up against number 9 Northwestern on Thursday at 1:30 p.m. Northwestern is 54-11 on the year. Strong wins over Oregon, UCLA, Clemson, Missouri, and Michigan. But guys, some strange losses throughout the year. They've lost to Minnesota twice by run rule. They've lost to Texas Tech, who we can vouch for not very good in the softball realm, and then CSU Fullerton. So some strange ones in there. I'm not going to pretend like I've watched Northwestern softball all year, so maybe there's some valid reasons for potentially why those losses happened. But looking forward, if you win, you play the winner of UCLA and Texas on Saturday. If you lose, you play the loser of UCLA or Texas on Friday. Guys, Sooners, at least on paper, by far have the tougher side of the bracket. When you think of UCLA, Northwestern, Texas, number 5, number 9, number 14. If you look on the other end, at least on paper, number 13, Florida, number 37, Oregon State, number 43, Arizona, and then, of course, number 7, Oklahoma State over there. So, I mean, anything can happen. This is why you play the games. I know that there was a ton of upsets in the super regionals, but guys, at least on paper, the Sooners definitely have their work cut out for them. One thing that is interesting, and I always forget which round this actually happens in, but the brackets do flip kind of midway through the Women's College World Series, so it may work out well. But I think, you would have to think the way things are playing, Oklahoma State feels super confident coming out of the bottom of the bracket, and OU's got to feel as confident as ever coming out of the top of that bracket. So we could have a Bedlam World Series. We'll see. That would be really interesting. But guys, the big question's got to be Jordy Ball, right? We have not heard much on her status, but as many Sooner fans probably were, watching her celebrate with the team after Game 2 in Norman, a lot more movement coming from that arm, not quite as bandaged up as it was before. Are we thinking we're going to see a Jordy Ball game here in Oklahoma City?
I think Patty. How dare we doubt Patty Gasso? I think I came on this podcast right after the Big 12 tournament when they lost to Oklahoma State, and I wasn't quite pressing the panic button, but I was definitely looking at it going into postseason play. But guys, dominant postseason run up to this point, outscoring all 5 of their opponents 52-3 through the first 2 weeks of the postseason. And guys, it's just stupid what this team is doing right now. All 9 starters hitting over 300. 7 of the 9 are hitting over 350. You've got 6 double-digit home run hitters. And then, guys, the biggest eye-opening stat of all of them is you look at all 3 of Oklahoma's pitchers. They all have an ERA under 1. Hope's is 0.4, Jordy's 0.95, and Nicole May. I know we've given her so much grief on this podcast. Okay, she's a perfect 15-0 with a .99 ERA. So, I don't know if we were kind of doubting Patty. We weren't. I don't think that's the wrong word to use, but we were pressing the panic button, or at least getting close to it when Jordy wasn't going to be ready to go for the postseason play. And boy, here you go. Pitching staff, Hope Trotwine and Nicole May has only given up 3 runs in the last 5 games.
It's crazy, and
it's awesome. It's awesome.
I was one of the doubters when Ball was announced that she wasn't going to go for the regional, because I thought, man, we could be out, the season with her, and I just not sure that the depth is there. And maybe that does prove true at this point, but you have to be really encouraged with the way that Trotwine and Nicole May have pitched. And we knew they were both, really great, but they've handled and dealt these teams and not had to play anything extra. No losses so far in the postseason. And there's going to be some tough teams on this side of the bracket here to go through. But man, you put your work in, and maybe you don't even need Ball at this point. As good as she is and as valuable as she is to this team, maybe it doesn't matter.
I would be surprised if we see her start a game. If she's healthy to go, I wouldn't be surprised maybe to see her come in and try to close one out. And so that could be an interesting way to maybe keep her pitch count down, but to still get her for some meaningful, pitches when we need it. So it's going to be really interesting, guys. I mean, we think that was, by the time they start, that was almost 3 weeks ago, or almost a month since the injury took place. I'm trying to think. Big 12 championship and then 2 rounds. So you're looking at almost a month.
Yeah.
So, granted, I've never had this injury, but you got to think that there's at least some sort of optimism that after a month of just sheer getting healthy, that she at least has a chance to go. But let's take a quick look at Northwestern here, guys. 54-11 on the year, as I mentioned before. Most of their pitchers, I think it's led, I'm seeing here, 31-4 by Danielle Williams. Their starting pitcher there with an ERA of 1.86. If you look over to kind of their batting guys, nothing really jumps off the page. But one thing I thought was interesting, Northwestern 67 home runs on the year. And let's compare that to what OU's done this year with 138. So pretty interesting there. But guys, if you narrow it down to just sheer hits here, let's go up a little bit further. Northwestern hits on the year 466, Sooners 508. So a little bit of a closer gap than what the home runs probably would lead you on to. So I have a feeling that if Northwestern's going to win this game, it's a low-scoring pitching battle. But if the Sooner bats come alive, at least on paper, it doesn't seem like Northwestern will really be able to hang on to this one.
Who scares you the most Just, I guess, in these final other 7 teams, who do you not want to face?
OSU, because of the familiarity.
Texas is playing really well right now, though. I don't know. It would be nice to stay away from the 2 Big 12 teams for exactly kind of what you're mentioning there, just out of sheer familiarity. But then if you stay away from Texas, then you're facing UCLA, who's no slouch.
Yeah.
So it's going to be really interesting. I said it before. I think OU has definitely the harder side of the bracket. But it's all about getting hot at the right time. Maybe this, Oregon State, maybe Arizona, these 2 teams that have kind of snuck in. Maybe they're playing right, and Oklahoma State and Florida have some things to look out for. But another thing I thought that was interesting, guys, Oklahoma City has been a home not only for OU but for the SEC. 1 team from the SEC in this year's Women's College World Series, 3 from the Big 12 and 3 from the Pac-12, and then obviously you have Northwestern from the Big 10.
It's kind of funny, guys. We talked about it before the season started when trying to make our projections on who we thought was going to get to Oklahoma City to play in the Women's College World Series, and we kind of laughed and talked about the lack of parity in collegiate athletics on the women's side. How usually depending on the sport, there's always 3 to 4 teams that are kind of maybe far superior above the rest, and in terms of what's realistic, and teams having a chance to win a national championship. Then you look at the teams that are representing the 8 spots in this contest, and only 5 of the top 16 national seeds actually made it all the way to Oklahoma City. So I think that just speaks about the depth that there is across college softball right now. But guys, kind of going back to Jordy, one last point here. I think that Jordy is, and again, this is us not having any knowledge. This is just kind of a gut feeling here. I think Jordy is further along in the healing process. I think she's ready to go. I think she could pitch tomorrow if we needed her to, but I don't think we see her unless we lose a game. Now, ultimately, coming up this weekend, it's going to be a double elimination format. Everybody knows that. But I think that these first 2 games, it's coach speak. You always want to get off on a hot start. But Corbin, like you said, the top half of this bracket, it's loaded by comparison to the other side. So if you can figure out a way to get through these first 2 games, and me personally, I might even throw Nicole May against Northwestern, knowing that you've got UCLA and Texas, probably 2 of the top 5 teams in college softball right now. I maybe try to save Hope Trotwine for that game, because then if you can get through those 2 games unscathed and you're 2-0, you've got to win 1 more game to get to the championship series. So try to save Jordy as long as you can, but I think there's a very good chance that we'll see her starting this upcoming weekend. Hopefully we don't have to see her, because if we don't see her, I think that means that we're probably going undefeated and win a national championship.
So I would almost go the other way around. If Jordy can go, I'm throwing her Thursday. Because if something goes wrong with her, I wouldn't want it in an elimination game. I'd want it where there's a little bit of flexibility. And if she plays well and she is able to handle everything, then you don't have to play Friday. And so, we know, and I know it's coming where, the softball World Series is going to elongate. There's going to be more time, not necessarily everything rushed into it like it has been in years past. But right now, it's about getting days off in the World Series. And if you can come in, you throw Jordy, she's healthy, and you can win that game 1, then if she's good to go, you're throwing her game 2 as well on Saturday. So to me, it's get her out there early. Then you've got time for Nicole May, Hope Trotwine to potentially come in behind her if it goes wrong, without necessarily having your season on the line.
And I don't think you can understate the impact of rest enough after looking at what Oklahoma had to go through last year. Losing game 1 to James Madison, having to fight their way all the way up through the losers bracket to get back to the championship series. There were no days off for Patty's squad last year. So I guess my last thing on this, guys, Patty Gasso and this group have an opportunity starting on Thursday afternoon to put the final touches on what could ultimately go down as one of the greatest softball teams in the history of Division I collegiate softball. So I cannot wait to see it. I'm extremely impressed with what I've seen from this pitching staff, how they've kind of overcome not having Jordy Ball, their ace, and the National Freshman of the Year, as we found out just about an hour ago. So this team's firing on all cylinders right now. Much like OU baseball, they're peaking at the right time. They're playing their best ball, and that bodes well for both baseball and softball going to the next stage of postseason play.